Hey guys, Keith here. Appreciate y'all tuning in once again here on this Friday night. I want to talk about dating coworkers. Is that something you would do or have done? How'd that work out for you? Let me know in the comments there. Uh, one of the I think it was a lady that commented. Uh, One of the newer comments just recently here, last day or so, that mentioned that she gets asked out at work a lot, but she doesn't date coworkers. So and I already had the idea of doing a video on this, but that kind of sparked that again, and I thought, well, I want to share that and see how y'all feel about that. Have you dated coworkers? If so, how did that go? What do you think about that? Some of you I know maybe retired and don't have that opportunity now, but if when you did work, did you date someone, and would you date someone that you worked with? I have dated a coworker, maybe one or two. I know one at least, and I'm trying to think actually in my day if I've ever really dated. I know I've liked them for sure, but I don't know really dated more than just the one officially dating. And yeah, it's it can get tricky. The bad thing is if things go south, uh, then you're kind of you got that awkwardness of having to deal with that person. If you have a bad breakup and things go bad, whatever, then you've got to, especially if they're in your department. It depends on how big your company is and where they're located. They may be in a different wing and different building, or maybe whatever, and so you don't even, it's not an issue. But, and of course, right now I work remote, so uh, all my coworkers live in different states. And so that's just not even a thing. But and plus most of mine are a lot younger than me or married. But anyway, but regardless of that, we're not in the same area. We're not in the same building, and so that's a little difficult to do. But if you're in the same, you know, where you're all working together and going into work together, and like I say, you have a breakup, they're in the same department. It could get messy. It could and like I said, depending on how you broke it off, and all that. But a lot of times it's a one sided deal. Somebody makes a decision to break up, not both of you. Usually is how it works out. So then you got the other one with a broken heart and it's upset, and it can get messy. So I can see where it would be hard to date someone that you work with. Also, just maybe taking work home with you all the time, or on a date with you, taking work with you on a date. And I don't mean the person so much, but just the conversation being about work all the time. It's like, and you may like your work, and hopefully you do, but do you want to talk about it, all the time? Um, you're going to probably bring that home anyway to a spouse and maybe talk about your day and all that, but where you're both working there, it just may be a topic of conversation a lot, which may be fine, it may not be. It's hard to say. And then also the other thing I thought of, and I've seen this happen before, personal experience. But if you're working together and the one doesn't like something you did at work, and brings it up outside of work, or maybe not something that you specifically did or didn't do, but something that your department, especially if you're not in the same department, but almost like a competing department. Not quite. There shouldn't be any competition in the work for in we should all be together working together, but still there can be that that's that department, that's their problem. And so I've seen that be an issue before, where things got brought up that my department did or whatever, and problems with that. So there's a lot of negative things that can come into a relationship where you're bringing that work, and love relationship or whatever, dating relationship, into work. And so sometimes you shouldn't mix business with pleasure, as they say. And so, I'm sure that a lot of people have, it's worked out for them, and that's where they met their soulmate. And that's great. It's awesome. But still, it can get messy if it doesn't work out well, right? And I've seen it times where people meet and they do they date, they get married, and then one of them quits. One of them, so they're not both there all the time. My wife and I actually worked together. Now, we didn't meet at work. We worked together after we got married. She came to work for the company I was working for, and people, my friends, and all, like my boss, like, that's not gonna work, man. That is not gonna work, wife and husband. But it actually worked very well. We proved them wrong on that, and we got along well. We worked together a lot, and side by side we worked together, and we became a team. And they would send us. We traveled a lot, so they would send us as a team, just me and her, to go and take care of things, and so it was pretty cool. But not saying there was never any problems, but for the most part, we kept it, you know, we kept it business at work, and we tried not to take things, back home with us or back to the motel room with us, that happened at work, as far as what, bringing up something that the other one did or didn't do. We just didn't do that. So it worked out well. But meeting someone at work, and then liking someone, and that's very common because you're with that person a lot, a long time, and several hours a day, several hours a week, and so you get to know that person. You get to kind of trust that person. You kind of know their personality. You know kind of what they're like on a good day and a bad day. You get to see them, without actually living with the person. You kind of get to see what they're like, because you're going to see their good and their bad side. People can't hide that for very long. Now, if you just go out on a date with somebody that you just meet, they can pretend to be great, and even 2 or 3 dates, but they can hide that dark side that they have, or may have, or whatever. But when you work with somebody day in and day out, you kind of get to see, them, and plus you get to hear about their family, and you kind of get to know their likes and dislikes and their hobbies and whatever. So I get the attraction there, because you obviously have something in common. You work in the same place, and then you find out other things about them, and you're attracted to them physically, and then also you begin to fall in love with their personality and their likes and dislikes. So, like I say, I get the attraction, but also I see the negative side, and that's the way with any relationship. Really, there's going to be there's good and there's bad. That's just the way relationships are. It's just is it worth it to you? And if it is, hey, and you're both willing to do it, and go for it, and if it goes south, then you got to kind of figure out what's going to happen there. Are you just going to be businesslike and go, okay, we're gonna forget about the personal life, or whenever you're going to have to move on, especially if you're in the same department. So, but anyway, let me know in the comments what what your feelings are on this, and if you've ever dated a coworker and how did that go. I'm curious to see. Not that I'm just wanting to hear the bad stuff. I'd like to hear the juicy stuff too, the good stuff. I like that stuff too. So I don't necessarily like the bad stuff. I didn't mean to say it that way, but I like to hear the stories and of how people if you met, especially if it worked out, that's a better story for me. But I'm curious too if you had some that didn't go well, and a lot of times it's because you were together all the time, maybe, whatever. That could be one of the reasons. But anyway, let me know on that. And if you got any topics you want to talk about and discuss, we talk about dating a lot. I talk about it a lot because it's something I never do. But that's the way it works. You talk about stuff that you never get to do. But just things you want to do. But anyway, I'm happy with me, myself, and I, and that's okay. But anyway, I appreciate y'all sharing, as always, in the comments. If you could give us a thumbs up on this, if you like what we're doing, turn on those notifications, subscribe to us. And like I say, let me know in the comments if you have some ideas on topics that you'd like to me to talk about and screw up or whatever. I'm probably not necessarily an expert on it, especially if it's dating. I'm not an expert on that at all. But anyway, but I can talk about it all day long. I can. So anyway, appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll see y'all in the next video. Thanks.